And away we go. It is the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com. As we get settled in for another show. We're just cruising through the shows this week. We had the afternoon BBP yesterday, a hilarious PTP last night with Troy Copain, Kane Broom, and Kevin Johnson. And today, you get myself, Chad Brendel, and the Bearcat Journal Conference Realignment Insider, our very own David Simone. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
I mean, if everybody else is a Conference Realignment Insider, right?
Yeah.
So is Dave.
I mean, why not?
Right? We'll wait till some people get in here, and then we'll give them your ultimatum for the night.
That's right.
I am, as you can see, live from the road, Asheville, North Carolina. I'll be up bright and early in the morning and headed down to Rock Hill, South Carolina for some AAU action. I should have been there today, but we had all the podcasts yesterday, and we had this podcast tonight. So you'll get AAU coverage starting tomorrow because content, right? We got to get you guys your content. So had some barbecue tonight, Dave.
How was it?
It was really good, actually.
Excellent.
It was a 4.9 stars on the Uber Eats app.
Okay.
But I have a question before as we're allowing people to get in the room. I have a question.
Yeah.
So when did delivery, like restaurants, just stop giving you utensils, napkins? Like I got barbecue. I got ribs. I got a 2-meat deal, 2 meat and 2 sides. I got ribs and chicken wings.
Yeah.
I got hush puppies. I got macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
They didn't send me napkins or a fork.
I mean, barbecue and napkins kind of go hand in hand.
One would think.
And then, you probably need a fork to eat some mac and cheese.
One would think.
So, yeah, it seems like a miss on their part. Maybe that's why they're a 4.9 and not a 5.
Instead of 5. Well, and I even, like when you order on Uber Eats, there's a little box you check that says, I would like utensils and napkins. And I checked that box, and I still didn't get utensils and napkins.
Does your hotel have them?
So I am staying at one of my favorite hotels. And I got a timetable on this as I was checking in today. I've been staying at this hotel apparently since 2014, every summer, because I stop in Asheville, and then I'll either go to the events that are in South Carolina or Peach Jam. So I'll probably be back here next week. I love this hotel. It's a little tiny boutique hotel. It was run down. This family bought it, completely gutted it, renovated it. And it's really sharp, and it's usually only like $90, which when you're looking for hotels today it might as well be free.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, they had napkins, they had a fork, they had everything I needed. They got me taken care of, and so I'm good to go. But I just want to know, like, you're a restaurant, right? I'm a consumer. Why can't I get plates and napkins with my order?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, ordering carryout these days is not cheap, Dave.
I know.
It's actually very expensive.
Try not to do it.
It's very expensive. Unbelievable. So how you been?
I have a headache.
Oh no. Where'd that come from? Having the notion of having to talk about conference realignment again tonight gave you a headache?
That's exactly where it came from.
I hear you've been talking conference realignment all day.
I have. I've been dabbling here and there. Just making my way through the ebbs and flows.
How how'd it go? Did you figure anything out?
Of course not, because no one knows anything. But apparently, I just saw this. I'm not sure that this makes any sense or would make any dollars. But apparently, the Pac-12 and the ACC are discussing a broadcast partnership that would have the ACC network that basically no one watches, or a new ESPN network. So what would that be, like ESPN PACAC? Like,
I mean,
just
well,
a
there's
totally
a Pac-12
new
network that also no one watches.
ESPN channel. Air Pac-12 games on the West Coast. So I'm just trying to understand this. The ACC that they would have a broadcasting partnership on a channel that either doesn't exist yet or that nobody really watches, air Pac-12 games on the West Coast. But a question looms: will it generate enough additional TV cash to be worthwhile? I mean, I think we all know the answer to that, right? Like, if people aren't watching Pac-12 games on ESPN or ESPN2, they're going to watch them now on the ACC network or some channel that doesn't even exist. Yeah.
It doesn't. This makes a whole lot of sense as we've watched people try to prop up Pac-12 over the past 24, 36 hours. Like,
yeah. But I don't want to,
I get,
as the Bearcat Journal college conference realignment expert, I don't want to give any more info away for free.
Dave is demanding, if you want Dave to talk conference realignment, you're going to have to pay up tonight.
I have no interest in really talking about it, but I know that that's what everybody wants us to talk about. So if you want us to talk about it, you're going to have to pay for it. Or this will be the shortest Bearcat Journal podcast in recorded
of all
history.
time.
And I'm totally cool with that tonight. No,
here's
Chad is not
the
going to
difference.
be looking like Dave here soon. Chad has hair. He chooses to cut it. I have no hair.
I chose to cut it because I know I'm going to be on the road in a bunch of places that are hot as hell over the next, 2.5 weeks. And then it's going to be time for higher ground. And I was just tired of messing with it, man. I had to clear it with Kelly.
Because there's not really that much there anyway. And when you don't have much and you kind of let it go, it makes you look even more bald than you already are. You are doing a lot of buffering right now.
I'm worried about this. I love.
It's really going to be a short show if it's just me, because I'll just go away.
I know. It's got a thing on my screen that shows one bar.
Yeah.
So I don't feel great. I look great in my screen.
Well, yeah, you're not looking so hot. You're quite pixelated, quite blurry, quite behind.
Let's see. Does that change anything? Is my voice laggy?
Still a little bit.
Oh. Until I see more signal strength here. There's 3 girls out on the lawn here outside the room, and they're all on their phones.
Well, tell them to get off the phones.
Right?
We're trying to conduct major intercollegiate athletics business here.
In the past 1 minute, I went from 1 bar to 2 bars to 3 bars and then back down.
Are you using your iPad? What are you doing?
I'm on my laptop.
Oh, okay.
So,
but yeah, there's so much. I just feel like there's just so much stuff being thrown around that is just full of ulterior motives coming directly from people, places, entities in an effort to look like things are going a certain way. They might be, but they also might not be. So like I'm like Friday's show was a lot of fun because we had like concrete thing happened, we reacted.
Right.
Since that time, the only thing that has happened is the Pac-12 has opened up their negotiating window early at the urging of all of the schools because they would like to have a better idea of what their next TV contract is truly going to be worth so that they can then decide if that is worth it to stick together or if it would be more beneficial to pursue something else. Not named Big Ten SEC because nothing that they do will be worth not pursuing that if those opportunities presented themselves. But other than that, like, this is a bunch of nothing burger to me.
It's because it's a bunch of nothing. Like there's literally nothing happening right now.
And I don't want to be a hypocrite. I jumped in on the board and given a few comments here or there, and posted some stuff, or I should say retweeted some stuff, like from The Athletic this morning, from Pete Thamel the other day. But, all of our favorite people that have generated a huge following over the years based on of just saying whatever comes to their mind, whether it's sourced or not, regarding the subject, they've made an appearance over the last couple days. And I just don't know, like, I'm not discrediting. Like, everybody has a source. Everybody's source isn't impeccable. So I'm not going to, like, discredit. You can, I mean, shit. The Maryland 24/7 site broke them going to the Big Ten back in the day.
Right.
So it doesn't, you don't have to be a Pete Thamel for me to believe you. But when certain people have played this, I'll call it game, for so long and said so many things and had so many tweets or articles or whatever on the subject, it's hard for me to go, oh yeah, this time I'm going to believe this one versus all the other stuff that has just turned out to be not true at all or partial truth or whatever. I mean, you say enough things, eventually something's going to be accurate.
So this is kind of like we've talked a lot about Jason Schur, who is basically the me of Arizona, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually like, it's funny because as this has evolved, let's see, turn my camera back on. Am I any better right now?
Yep.
Okay. As this has evolved, we've kind of turned into like a how-to on like sorting through the reporting, what everybody's saying, what's out there, how to make sense of it. And from everything I know, Jason Schur is outstanding at covering Arizona. Really plugged in, really connected, like the go-to guy for covering Arizona. Well, here's the problem. I sensed what's happening because he's the one that over the weekend reported that on Tuesday, the Big 12 and the four Pac-12 schools were going to meet. And everybody ran with it. Every outlet, Big 12, Pac-12, reportedly meeting on Tuesday. Well, yesterday we didn't hear anything about that meeting. And today,
the only thing we heard was Dennis Dodd, and then I'm going to assume other sources from
the Athletic.
By the Athletic saying in discussions. Didn't say anything about a meeting. Didn't say they've talked already. they're talking tomorrow. Like, I just think we get, and I don't want to cut you off and I'll let you keep going, but like we get into this, I'm not going to say rut, but this like mindset of we make things the way we want to believe them and not what they actually are. Like,
right.
Did they actually meet? Well, we don't know. But this has turned into like they're meeting.
Okay, so, and then I guess Arizona State and Colorado made statements yesterday that were kind of in support of the Big 12 or the Pac-12.
Wow, that's a stunner.
Right. So he came out today and said, vibe I get and just the vibe is Arizona wants the Big 12 and other schools are slow playing it or getting cold feet. Doubt Arizona can move on its own. Found it interesting that Utah and Arizona didn't match Arizona State and Colorado's statements yesterday. So you know what that tells me in as many words? He was reporting from the Arizona side of things.
Right.
What was factual to the Arizona side of things. And then projecting that to the others. And that's not accurate.
Right. Well, at the same time, like what you just read also makes sense. Like it does. Yeah. Like if everybody was behind the Pac-12, wouldn't everybody say that?
Right. That would be the reports coming from all four of those schools.
And we would all say, well, of course that's what they're going to say. They're not going to say like this league sucks. We're out now that UCLA and USC are gone, like blah blah blah. Like, but they didn't. But other schools didn't say anything.
Right, and the Arizona guy had something to say, which tells you, from the Arizona side, there's probably a lot of smoke.
Yeah, they're interested in pursuing.
But him using that to assume that it's the same feeling at the other three schools would be like me getting information on Cincinnati and then saying, a year ago, well, this is also how UCF, Houston, and BYU feel. Now, I would have had a better chance of being right because, of course, they were going to take the Big 12 invitation. But I think when you're doing this, like you have to sort through. This guy is a great source on Arizona, but that doesn't mean he's sourced at Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado.
Right. He's inferring a lot. And he also, we're not trying to like trash him or anything, but he paid himself in the corner by putting time on it.
Yeah.
That's why we try to always keep things open-ended. Like today, Oregon and Washington, today Colorado might be totally cool with the Pac-12, and then tomorrow Oregon and Washington go to the Big Ten. Guess what? Colorado ain't cool with the Pac-12 anymore.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do you as Bearcat Journal site owner, it doesn't do me as contributor to Bearcat Journal any good to say
it doesn't do you as conference realignment expert.
Right. Doesn't do me any good to say, even if I think it's 100%, it doesn't do me any good to say like they're meeting today or tomorrow, because what if they just don't?
Right.
It just makes your reporting look inaccurate.
And that's we talked about this yesterday a lot. Like for me, man, I've watched a lot of people's careers go up in flames trying to be conference realignment experts. And trying to think that they're out in front of it. And then when it blows up in their face, they have no credibility left and they lose their following. Like it doesn't, unless I'm told from someone very high upon high, this is what's happening, then I'm going to be careful with it. And guess what? People high upon high, even if I talk to them, aren't telling me what's happening.
No.
That's just the reality of it.
Even though things moved quickly with UCLA and USC, roughly a couple months, there was not a single leak. There was not. I mean, some people guessed, but they're not.
Sure.
They're not basing it. When it became public was when it was essentially done. So all these reports and scenarios, like, they're being given to these people from someone, but do you think they're being given to these reporters from the people that are from the president or the chancellor or the board of trustees or the regents?
No.
They're being given to people as, well, this would make a lot of sense for us. Like, I listened to, we reference him quite a bit. Stephen Godfrey, Split Zone Duo podcast. They have almost like a pay part now on Patreon, and they did a podcast today. He's talking about the two Johns out on the West Coast. John Canzano with the Oregonian, and John Wilner, I think, is with like the Mercury something in California. And he's like, these two guys, like, basically 100% of the time when they say something, it's probably believable. Like, they're very, very good at covering what they cover out there. And he said, but also, everything that they're saying right now is basically exactly what you would say to try to make it seem like things are way better than they are. It's the same stuff you saw with the Big 12 when they were maybe going to get picked apart by the Pac-12 the first time. It's the same shit you saw with the Big East. Like, if things are going really, really great, that's not getting out. Like, you're trying to do the work, get your ducks in a row, and then do your thing. I've seen several people basically talk about, here's the other part too to that. John Canzano with the Oregon. Who has the most to lose if the Pac-12 goes away?
What, Oregon State and Washington State, right?
Right. So, who does it behoove the most to make it seem like things are going great right now behind the scenes? Oregon State and Washington State.
Sorry, I was choppy there for a second.
No. So, like, who do people think he's getting this info from? Like, of course, Oregon State is wanting everything to sound great. They don't want the Pac-12 to go away.
Because if it goes away, their options go away.
Yeah. I mean, they played a game on the podcast today of like 3 words to describe all these different groups, and one of them was Oregon State and Washington State, and Godfrey was like Mountain West champs.
Right?
Yeah. Like, so anything coming out is coming from someone who needs it to come out. Oregon and Washington haven't said shit because they don't need to say shit. They don't. I mean,
don't have to say a word. They're valued. They're coveted.
They might not end up in the Big Ten, which they might want to be. I don't know.
But they're not ending up in the Mountain West.
Right. So either the Pac-12 stays at 10 or expands or something. They go to the Big Ten, or maybe they go to the Big 12. But like, they can do their bidding behind the scenes. Now it sounds like Phil Knight doesn't have a problem talking, or Phil Knight's people, or whatever.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to shut up. Like, he doesn't.
No, he's just he's just a big booster. He can say he wants Oregon to be on the moon. It doesn't matter.
He can say he wants Oregon to go to the NFL.
Right. But, I think I just think there's a lot of hand-wringing and fatalistic approaches sometimes because of old things that happened, and you just kind of play like the Chicken Little card in your head.
Sure.
Where I just, I don't know. The speculation is so silly to me. Like, it's fun. It's a fun game. Like, believe me, I sent you a text yesterday about the number of views on the thread, and it's up like 70,000 from when I sent that to you.
In 24 hours.
Yeah.
30 hours. Are the Pac-12 presidents dumb enough to really enter this reported alliance with the ACC? Sure.
It's not that they're dumb enough. It's
they don't have options.
Right. Like when it's or when your situation is or die or get fired, like or go to the Mountain West, you're going to come up with any harebrained idea that you think maybe can work. Like, just because I'm sitting here saying that I think it doesn't work, I'm not the one who, I'm not George, however you say his name, Kolovkov or whatever, who walked into this job a year ago and is right back in the same situation the conference was in when he took it.
Yeah. I mean,
like, he's trying to not get fired. You come up with a lot of random shit when you're trying to not get fired.
It's not even get fired. It's have his job go away for good.
I mean, the Pac-12 or whatever will probably still exist in some iteration.
It depends on who, like if the let's say the four corner schools leave and Oregon and Washington,
right?
They go to somewhere and the SEC takes Stanford and Cal. All of a sudden, there's like 3 teams left in the Pac-12.
Yeah. Yes, it could dissolve. I think that's a nuclear option.
Well, it's what should have happened to the Big 12 at this time a year ago.
Yeah, the Pac-12 could have ended the Big 12 a year ago, and they decided they didn't want to expand. Whoops.
They helped them up off the mat.
And now the Big 12 should be, doing the whole call an ambulance, but not for me.
Right.
Right back to them. I mean, it sounds like they are making an attempt. Again, sounds like, I don't know. I tend to believe to whatever extent you can what the Athletic put out today. But what does that mean?
Yeah, like Max Olson and Nicole Auerbach and that crew are good at their jobs.
But again, what does that mean in discussions? Like the Big 12 can't give them any truly firm idea of what their next TV rights deal will be.
Right. They can give them estimations.
Right. That's why the Pac-12 is opening theirs up now. It's not because they want to try to. I think it's driven by the partners. They want to know how bad it's going to be. They're not looking to capitalize. They want to know how bad it is, so they know if they need to get out. Okay, that should probably go away.
What?
How do you?
Oh, you got a pop up or something?
I got a comment in the chat about something. That is interesting.
I was going to answer that.
Autoerotic asphyxiation. I'm just
of a goldfish.
I'm just a college football realignment expert. I can't. That's out of my realm.
I'm not into whatever kinky shit your goldfish was into.
Yeah. But yeah, they're just trying to see okay, how bad is it? Is it? Is it worth it? Do we think that this a move? It really comes down to, do you want to be tethered to California basically, but without USC and UCLA? Or do you want to be tethered to Texas without Texas? Like, which one do you think is more viable to you as a program, as a brand, as a college football program? Because let's be real, that's the deciding factor for the most part.
Sure.
And then I think that there's a lot of things too that maybe get a little overlooked because we're looking at on-field and brand and and eyeballs and market size doesn't matter as much anymore. I mean, there was an article today where they talked about the Boston market. Like, fuck the Boston market. How many people in the Boston market actually watch Boston College? Tell me that.
Boston market's still around? I
Yes.
thought those are gone.
Yes. Don't just throw out just random big cities as if they give a shit about the college football program that happens to be in them.
Well, the Boston market is busy winning championships in every major professional sport. Like, when's the last time that market cared about college sports?
Well, yeah. I mean, the article also gave New York City, Syracuse to New York City. I've been to New York a lot of my life. A lot of my life. Those two places are not near each other. I'm sure there are tons.
No, but there's a lot of Syracuse alum.
I'm sure there are. But you cannot just say, "Oh yeah, we'll just give Syracuse New York City."
Yeah.
So
I used to love Boston market. Are there any of them left in Cincinnati? There used to be one in Rookwood. I don't know if it's there anymore.
I don't know.
I don't go there anymore.
But
I'm not in that general vicinity anymore. But I like Boston market. They used to have good food.
I do too. I think I ate one in Cleveland sometime. I don't know. But
Jason.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is true. Almost verbatim. Anytime someone puts out a message of blatant confidence or togetherness in college realignment, it means they're freaking out, trying to posture, or trying to stab somebody in the back.
I mean, the Alliance came out because they were hurt by the SEC and talked about looking into each other's eyes and shaking hands, and we don't need to sign anything. Because if by God we had to sign something, well, that would just mean, that we shouldn't even be doing this. And then a year later, Kevin Warren just shanks the shit out of both of the other conference commissioners, basically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but then you just have, like, there's so many more dynamics. Like, yes, and it's when it's or die, some of these things go away. But, like,
sure.
Do you think Stanford and Cal, for say whatever you will about them, but they are, like, insane high-level academic institutions?
Yes.
Like, do you think they really want to be associated with, like, a Boise State that's not even in the top 300 of, like, the whatever U.S. News and World Report, or like name the Big 12 school? Like, they're all good schools, but, like, we're talking about the elite of the elite.
Right.
Like, Stanford has more money, a higher endowment. Like, they're just pumping out geniuses that are, inventing shit left and right. Like, I'm not dogging UC. Like, they're in that group now too. Like, a very good, becoming even better academic school. But, like, do you think Stanford and Cal really, if they had it their way, want to be in the same conference with those schools?
No, of course not.
Do you think, knowing the political climate that we are in, do you really think schools in Palo Alto, California, and Berkeley, California, who are run by people that are geniuses and all those things, from a political standpoint, do you think those people that run those schools in the state of California want to be associated with the people that have the thinking the way that they do in Texas and Oklahoma or whatever other state in that part of the country?
I will say no, but I will also say I don't. I mean, and then maybe it matters more in places like Stanford and Cal.
That's what I mean. Like, I think it does.
It clearly didn't matter to UCLA and USC.
No, but they have a different view of athletics.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think and this is just my opinion. Like, Stanford cut a bunch of sports a couple years ago and then got pressure and brought them back. I believe that's how it went. But, like, the mission of Stanford as a university, I do not think, even though they're all like Stanford, Cal, UCLA, USC, all high level, all AAU, like, but I just
Great
don't.
academic institutions.
They're not that like Stanford does excellent in all sports, but like, are they going to let football drive the bus for everything and make a move like this to align themselves or bring in or I could see them going to the Big Ten with other schools that have the same type of thinking as them, but it's hard for me to see them either wanting to leave that type of a situation or welcoming in programs that are just so polar opposite from an institutional standpoint.
Yeah, but then you get into the point of like, here's the thing. I was talking to somebody about this today as I was driving here. Like, one of the main reasons that UCLA had to do this, Dave,
they're in debt.
One, they're in debt, and two, their universities do not subsidize athletics. Like, they're not lending a helping hand if you want to go spend more.
Right. Well, I think that's the part of it that like they keep that higher ed overall institutional mindset, whereas I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong, but like clearly UC looks at it as we should help prop up these athletics because it helps us as a total university, where those schools look at it as like, hey, that's on them. We're a great damn university regardless. It's nice that our athletics are awesome or can be awesome, but it's not our responsibility to help them with shortfalls that they can't handle themselves.
Well, and the other thing, like, they don't need, a Cal or a Stanford doesn't need their admissions to go up. Like, they're going to take who they're going to take, and it's a finite number. They're not looking to like grow into a 60,000 student campus, right?
No.
Like, so
they're very fine institutions, the way they've been doing things for a very, very long time. But we've gotten to the point where, some of this is becoming, pseudo professional sports, if you want to call it that. Do those universities are they just like, this is not the model that we strive to be
for? Right. The reason I bring what I brought up is like UC having the success that they had this year. Raised applications, 30%, 35%, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I mean, it's every year they have more and more bring in the largest. Every year it's the largest freshman class.
Cal and Stanford aren't looking to do that. Like, they're content with where they're at. Like, so they don't need sports as a commercial per se, is what I was getting at. Like,
it was like me on a Saturday night in Knoxville. It's quality over quantity.
Depends on the Saturday night. I think that that varies sometimes. But yeah, so their mission is different. What they're trying to accomplish is different than a lot of these other places.
And that's the thing. Like, and that's part of the reason USC was so hell-bent on getting out was, yeah, we're on the same, we see things academically the same, but we want to be something different athletically, and we don't think that, we can make fun of it, and we can say that it's pompous or whatever, but like, they're like, we're tired of pulling weight for Oregon State and Washington State and Cal and like, we're tired of it. Like, your entire existence is based on us and our history and being in LA and you being able to recruit there, and everything that we've done is like, outside of Oregon, made the championship in the BCS era when they lost to Florida State.
Yeah.
And then made the playoff when they lost to Ohio State. And Washington made the playoff the 1 year in 2015. Nobody in the Pac-12 has ever threatened a national championship outside of USC. Washington, what did they share one in like the 1990 Don James or something?
Yeah.
But like, modern college football, let's just call it like the last 20, 30 years. Like, it's USC, man. Like, everything is, the whole conference has been around USC. So, like, while part of me is like, well, you guys can't even, like, you haven't even gotten to the playoff or whatever. Like, so don't be so high and mighty. But at the same time, I'd be like, yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I would kind of feel the same way because now it's like, yes, we have some catching up to do, but at least now whether it's Ohio State or Indiana and Purdue, all of those schools in the Big Ten are striving to get to the same place. And I'm not sure you could say that about the Pac-12.
It's crazy too because 7 years ago, Stanford was one of the best teams in the country for multiple years.
Yeah, but I think that shows you how hard it is to do that at Stanford.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that makes
that's what she said, Tonk.
Yeah, that's what's made me wonder. Like, as the sport has evolved, how much do they want to keep going down that road? Because they're going to stay true to their mission statement. And yeah, it was great to have Andrew Luck and Christian McCaffrey and Toby Gerhart, but like that is clearly the anomaly.
Exception.
Right.
We're far enough in, Tonk, that Dave said if you want him to continue talking about realignment as the newly appointed Bearcat Journal conference realignment expert, you're going to have to pay.
Yeah, all these people that we just answered their questions better start ponying up. I'm turning this thing off.
You can't even look at me tonight.
I know. You sound better. Try to flip it on, see what happens.
Every time I've flipped it back on, then it's taken a nosedive. So.
Oh, Steve says I won't. Steve clearly doesn't know.
You don't know Dave all that well. You don't know Dave all that well. Dave and I.
See now you
very much like there's very little threat. If it's ask my daughter if I tell her she's going to get grounded if something's not by 5 o'clock, guess what? Better be done by 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I could be doing anything else right now. I do this for you guys. So where do we take this from a UC standpoint? Because I'm tired of talking about all these other things that in a roundabout way.
From a UC standpoint, they don't have a vote in the Big 12 yet. We just wait to see if the Big 12 acts, right?
Yeah. I guess we could Brett Yormark, new Big 12 commissioner, will be at Big 12 Media Days next week. He clearly is not waiting till August 1st for his official start date.
That's pretty clear. His start date became July 1st. The minute that
there you go.
USC and UCLA left.
Tonk can come do all the Jello shots he wants at the Indiana tailgate now.
But that means I have to give you that $5.
Yeah, that's usually how transactions work.
I got to remember next month I've got to add $5 to your monthly stipend.
Should be getting more than that. We got a bunch of stuff on last Friday.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think any report about him being aggressive is probably accurate. Now, what does that mean? Does that turn into anything? Who the hell knows?
Right.
You can't. It means you could be as aggressive as you want. You don't really have anything to offer them, anybody right now, except for maybe a safe landing space, assuming somebody else leaves. But it really doesn't sound like the Big Ten is in any hurry to do anything. I mean, I just feel like if Washington and Oregon, if they were told Washington and Oregon brought them a tremendous amount of value, they would have added them already.
Well, there's also, what do you think of the kind of scuttlebutt that has gone around that USC and UCLA told the Big Ten, like, Oregon's a no for us?
I mean, I'm sure they told them that, but like, if the Big Ten felt the value was great, they'd tell them, well, okay, sorry, you're either in or you're out. Like, we're bringing them, and you guys can all come, or you can stay in the Pac-12. We don't give a shit.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's going to be some concessions of like, let's face it, they were added because they add value to the Big Ten's media deal. So there's going to be some level of like, we have a say. Like if you're going to continue to go after the Pac-12, we would prefer that you kept Oregon out of it. Because it's pretty clear, for whatever reason,
they could say that. But what I'm saying is, if I'm the Big Ten, I'm going, well, they're going to bring us all, X amount of dollars a year. So I'm sorry, like, sorry you don't want.
Well, and then they say, okay, then we're not interested in coming.
And then the Big Ten says, okay, whatever. Like, the Big Ten did not need to add UCLA and USC.
No, but they did it because it makes everybody more money.
It does, but Oregon and Washington clearly don't also make everybody a bunch more money.
Right, so maybe that's the easy route of telling USC and UCLA, okay, we'll say no to them.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm UCLA and USC, I'm being like, hey man, like you're bringing us in, we're helping you recruit into California. You want us to be as good as possible. Well, cut our biggest West Coast competition off at the knees by not inviting them. I'm sure that's what they said.
And then they said, here, let us introduce you to our friends, Stanford and Cal.
Yeah, because they don't care. And then you can get two really good academic schools, and then you can claim that you have the Bay Area.
Right.
Which that's what I would do. I would just try to get California.
Yeah. And box everybody else out of California.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Like, if you have those four schools, how many programs are really going to be spending a ton of time? Yeah, you're still going to have to recruit California because it's too big and there's too many players, but like all the good ones are going to go to those four schools more than likely.
Yeah, depending on what ends up happening with the Pac-12, like.
Oh, if those four schools went to the Big Ten, then the Pac-12 is essentially toast.
Right.
Because there's no school in California then, unless you add like Fresno State or something.
Well, I mean, you go add San Diego State, I would assume.
Great.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. The dominoes are going to be interesting to watch fall. Like, that was what was so interesting about Oregon and Washington being in that report about who the Big 12 was being aggressive with. I wonder if they've already been told, like, sorry, guys, this one ain't going to work out for you. Like, the Big 10 is not your jam.
Right.
Because that would make sense, wouldn't it? Like, they're going to reach out, and if there was a stop put on them by USC and UCLA that the Big Ten agreed to, because they would have had to have agreed to it, like, for it to be this far down the road. But then you just tell those two, like, look, we're not, you're not in our expansion plans.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Stanford thing, like, if you're really taking, let's talk about Dave's favorite topic here. If the Big Ten's really taking their swing at Notre Dame, like, Stanford makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think the Big Ten has to do anything until,
Notre Dame decides.
Well, they don't have to do anything, period. I mean, Notre Dame is just
Sure.
the golden goose for anybody. The hottest chick you've ever seen. Everything, all things orbit around them. And are they more likely to feel the need to join a conference today versus 2 weeks ago? Sure, I'm not sure that can really be debated.
Right.
But what has truly happened that has painted them into a corner that they feel they have to?
I think what the question is going to come down to is Notre Dame is talked to be valued at around $50 million a year individually for their media rights.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, do they look at the Big Ten and say, well, we really like 100? Or do they say, you know what? We don't need to sacrifice what we hold so dear in independence for the money. Is that money for giving up independence?
Right. How much is independent status worth? It's been worth an incredible amount to them to date. Are you typing?
So far, yes. No.
It sure sounds like it.
No, not typing.
Sounds like somebody's banging away on some keys. But it they don't have to do anything.
Right.
Would it be nice? Sure.
Unless they want to.
Right, unless they want to or they feel that they need to. They're never going to get – I just can't see a scenario where they get frozen out. Where today they're
unless
nope.
the playoff changes.
But that's what I mean. Today I'm nope, we're good. We like our situation. And then in 2025, their TV deal with NBC is up in after the 2025 season.
And that's also when the playoff contract is up.
Right. So if whatever the new playoff format, if they feel like the new format is not beneficial to them, then they're going to go to whoever and say, we're ready to join. And that conference is not going to say, oh, nope, sorry, you had the chance a couple years ago. Too late.
Well, what? The Big Ten's been waiting on Notre Dame for 30 years.
Right. They've
not longer.
And the way that the last playoff, iteration that was very close to getting done before the ACC and Pac-12 decided they needed to take a holistic view of the sport. Had Notre Dame in a position to not have to be in a conference.
Right.
But it's impossible to say without knowing what the next playoff format is. I feel like it's impossible to say or give any sort of a timeline on what they need to do and when they need to do it. Would it surprise me? It wouldn't surprise me if tomorrow they're like, we feel like things have changed. We need to join a conference. That wouldn't surprise me. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they didn't do anything ever, or if they didn't do anything until they knew what the next playoff was going to be. They're an independent. They were very, very close to making the college football playoff last year with one loss. Their coach left. They have a first-year head coach, and they have, the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class in the country for 2023?
I think they're back to number 1.
So, things are going okay. They don't have to do anything. And
right.
if that annoys people, or if fans are like, would you shit or get off the pot? They don't understand the orbit that Notre Dame is in. They don't owe
they're
it to
back
anybody.
to
They don't
they're
owe
back
it
to
to
number
anybody.
one. They've got 19 commits, 1 5-star, 16 4-stars, and 2 3-stars.
Just because all these other chess moves probably revolve around what they decide or don't decide to do. If I'm them, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't answer to you. We're going to do what we want to do when we want to do it.
Until the Big Ten and SEC go, well, we're just staging our own playoff.
Well, that's what I mean. But like, that's so far down the road that, if that even happens, it's not happening before 2026.
No. Well, 2025 is when the playoff ends, right?
Right. So there's nothing in place for the 2026 season.
Correct. There is no playoff in place for 2026. If
Correct.
the 2026 season were today, there would not be a playoff. There would just be
an end of the
standard. Season. There would be the standard bowl season.
Right.
There would not be.
Right. There'd be no 14 play. It's not like, and I know we've said this before, it's not like if they don't come up with something new, it's just a continuation of the 14. Like, no, the contract is over.
Correct. This is not the NCAA tournament. The NCAA has no hand in this.
They either renew the current 4-team deal and keep going the way they've been going, or they come up with something new, or they don't have a playoff.
I disagree with this, Joe. Too much Nike and Seattle company money for the Big Ten not to take Oregon and Washington. They're going to be making $100 million per school in just their media rights. They don't care about Seattle and Nike money.
It doesn't matter how much Nike money. Like, Nike isn't giving them free deals for all their gear, and
right.
And they're not a donor. It's not like, a company is a donor to a league. Just because Phil Knight owns Nike and does a lot of things for Oregon, he's not just all of a sudden going to start doing those things for 16 other teams.
Phil Knight is not giving out $20 million a school for all the other schools.
He doesn't want the other schools to be good. He wants his school to be good.
Right. Like, I just don't like it. I get where your logic is coming from, Joe, but that's the Big Ten's not going to see it that way. Like, they're just not. If
that mattered, you'd have, like, Memphis would obviously be in a big conference by now because Fred Smith
FedEx would have bought them in.
Would have just bought their way in,
which they tried to do, and it didn't work. Jason, it's really Fox and ESPN. Considering Fox took UCLA and USC from the Pac-12, I don't think there's any chance Fox is in on the Pac-12 anymore.
No, it's an ESPN thing now.
Yeah. They have pushed the Pac-12 to ESPN and said, if you want to save that sinking ship, go ahead. We're done with it. We took the 2 that we wanted. We moved them to our number 1 property. You can have the rest, or we'll take what we want of the rest, and the rest is on you. Save it if you want. And it sounds like ESPN is at least going to try. But an ACC Pac-12 merger? Come on, man. Like, how dumb is that?
Here's the other thing. And I listened to Andy Staples today on an athletic podcast. And he did an article, I guess, like less than a week ago, lose track of time, talking about greater rights. And this was a conversation I was in on the board today. And today he talked about how he didn't understand a whole bunch about what was in the grant of rights, but that the one thing he did understand was that it was all basically tied to ESPN. And his understanding is depending on what this merger partnership alliance is or becomes, his understanding is that from a TV standpoint, because the grant of rights is between the ACC and ESPN. That then changes the contract and would possibly be something that would allow schools to get out of the grant of rights, because he basically said, like, this is no longer the same thing that we signed anymore.
Right.
Now, I don't know. I mean, he's done a lot more legwork on it than I, and but it's one of the things I wondered. Like,
did you see the Twitter thing that came up that somebody really kind of dug into, like, the grant of rights agreements, and apparently they're just like 3 pages.
Well,
like, it's not some.
Yeah, that was part of his article, is that a student at Villanova back in like 2014 was doing something on them, a paper or whatever,
thesis,
and put out a Freedom of Information Act, and North Carolina actually granted it and gave him the grant of rights, which I think everybody was pissed off at North Carolina. And he is now an attorney in mergers and acquisitions, and he was, in this article, he talks about how, like, the funny thing about it is the athletic grant of rights is like 2 or 3 pages, where something like this between companies would be 50 to 100 pages. And he said it's pretty much blatantly done that way so that it's incredibly vague and it's incredibly hard to fight and can become incredibly costly and a huge penalty if you try to fight it and don't win. And so, like, it's very short for what we would think. I mean, like, a general coach's contract is
huge,
is longer from a page standpoint than this grant of rights. And the ACC basically took the Big 12's grant of rights and just changed the names of the participations. It's almost the same thing verbatim.
Yeah, they just took some white out and, like, went over the participants and copied the exact same.
And there's copies in the. I mean, it's an athletic article, so you have to have I think you probably have to have a membership. But, like, you can look at the grant of rights for the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC.
And they're not that impressive in terms of, like, what they like. The way
you're you're ceding the rights, your broadcast rights to your conference. So.
And then your conference is using those conference rights with a network.
Right. So, I don't know. It's a way above, Clearly, it's never been, to this point, it's never been, cost beneficial to challenge.
Right.
But, and I think one of the reasons is that it's so long. If there was only a couple years left,
right, people would be falling all over themselves to get out of it.
Right, but like 14 years. Okay, so you challenge it. Like, I still don't even, like, know how, like. So you get out of it, but they still own your rights. Like, you pay.
So I guess
you pay a penalty, a premium.
Are there people in the Pac-12? Are there people in the ACC looking to sabotage their grant of rights with this Pac-12 thing?
I'm sure there's. I would not for one second think that there's not people looking at it as, like, maybe not sabotage, but how do we get it to where we at least feel like we can challenge it? And
sabotage.
And have a fighter's chance. Like, Louisville's trying. Come on.
Look at what they did to the Big East. Like, they purposely sabotaged the Big East. $1 billion deal.
Even though, that was more.
And they sabotaged it with an eye on the ACC.
Pitt did that one.
Yeah, Pitt, Syracuse.
But yeah, I don't know. It's even like I've not really dug into it just because I think it's hard. It's hard language to try to figure out. And
but Eric, that Boston College trip to Cal once a year, that's going to save West Coast viewership because of Boston market. the restaurant.
That's right. Maybe they could be a
Bring
sponsor
back
for,
Boston Market.
for one of their big games or something.
The Boston Market Bowl. Boston College versus Cal in Fenway Park. Do you have anything else on this? Can we be done?
Yeah, I would like to.
All right. We'll keep it moving. We'll timestamp that. We don't have a timestamp sponsor. If you're interested, my DMs are open. Sponsor the timestamps. You want to give your Squad Fest opinions? We haven't heard from you since it was Thursday. Conference realignment, blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly.
It was Thursday that we did the live pod, and then we had the Friday Squad Fest. We have not heard from Dave on his second trip to Squad Fest. Now you had to bounce. You got to see the offense. You had to bounce before the defense came in because you had a tea time.
I did. Just busy man on Friday.
But what were your takeaways from the first half of Squad Fest?
It's awesome. I love it.
Like it really is the ultimate like testosterone filled.
Yeah, like it's just like the music's pumping. They got guys with smoke cannons. You know, Brady's got his Zuba pants on. You know, this year they had the throne set up with all the trophies from their recent successes, and you know the big WWE style belt. I saw one guy on the staff had some jacket on and like his nipples taped up or something. I didn't really understand what that was all about. I was a big fan of Michael Myers being there, being as awkward as possible. Josh Wiley had a mask on that I wasn't sure what that was all about. I mean, it's just bros being bros, and I love it. It gets you right in the mindset for football.
It's the ultimate football experience, more so than a game. The EK timestamp, the Tonk stamp was Tuesday.
Well, the Tonk stamp is also $4.99, and the EK stamp is $5.01. So
now I got to give you $10.
Well, I go where the green at.
I can't do it right now because my Venmo is all tied up with Nasty Natty.
I don't need $10 right now. Don't worry.
All right, we've raised over $2,000 for the Nasty Natty in 24 hours.
It's fantastic.
Oh,
you're breaking up again.
Match.
What's that? Oh, it's the Danco Joe $1,000 match.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
And everybody backed it up. They hit the $1,000. Danco Joe donated his $1,000, and we're helping those guys out. Those are awesome dudes, man. The PTP last night. If you haven't seen it,
listen to the PTP.
Was a riot.
Sounds like it was a good one.
It was very funny. Troy Copain at one point needs to host a show for us.
Okay.
Yep. We laughed so hard at some of the stories these dudes were telling, especially when they started getting into like some of the Mike Rayfeld stories.
Came Broom Dave said, Mike Rayfeld made me strong. And I fell out of my chair.
That's saying something.
He said he got me big.
Yeah, he got me big. And then he told a tale about how when he got here, he couldn't do the bar. Like he couldn't put plates on and do the bar.
That changed.
So what did he get? What did he get his max up to? Did he say?
We were laughing so hard. We like follow-up questions were not our specialty last night.
That's accurate.
I fell out of my chair onto the floor laughing.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go back and listen.
There's some really funny stuff in there.
So we had Troy and we had Kane and we had KJ on, and then next week we're following up with Corey Blunt, Shaq Thomas, Octavius Ellis, and Coriante DeBerry.
Oh, nice.
So
That will be entertaining. They will not be as funny as having Troy on.
depends on what Corey Blunt we get, I guess.
True. Kane was really funny. Like Kev was Kev. He was more, broadcaster, a little bit more straight down the middle. But Kane and Troy, man, oh boy.
They let it fly. No pun intended.
Did anybody talk about how, like, when Troy lets his hair go out in his Euro League days now, I think he looks like Shaft?
That comment would have been golden 24 hours ago.
That would have been like, Dave, if you've got stuff like this, you need to send it to us so we can
sorry.
make sure it gets through. Our brains do not work like yours.
No.
But,
You
Thank
guys
God.
touched on the Tyler Scott, Trey Tucker stuff, so I don't need to rehash that. That was impressive.
those two put on a show.
Yeah. Cam Jones looked like he just came from a 3-month hibernation in the foothills of Kentucky or West Virginia.
Well, yeah, he looked like he went home for the summer.
Yeah. But I think my thing was just watching, it's just watching dudes lift weights. I mean, it has some correlation to playing football, but I just get the sense of, like, who the hell is keeping them from three-peating?
Yeah, you missed probably my favorite part of the day on defense was getting a real look at Noah Potter and going, oh, yeah, that was a good addition.
Yeah, like I was watching him like beat the shit out of the punching bags with the other team's logos on them while the other guys all did wall sits. And I'm just like, these guys are going to lose to, not win the league this year.
Right.
And that could be in just insane homerism and not coming close to taking into account the, like, realness of what the team is replacing. So, if that's what it ends up being, then so be it. But it's very hard. It's very hard for me to sit there and go, that these guys don't have what it takes to win the championship again.
I mean, there's a good one for you, Dave.
Well, I didn't see the defense, so I can only speak to the offense.
We'll let Aaron answer for you on the defense.
I mean, it's a pretty physically imposing team when you put out there 5 offensive linemen that are all, over 300 pounds. You've got 2 6'5" plus tight ends. You've got Nick Mardner at 6'6", 2 whatever. You do have some, Tyler Scott and Trey Tucker are not, they're not your first off the bus guys, but then you also have, Corey Kiner, and Ryan Montgomery's like a fucking unit.
Miles Montgomery.
So from the offensive standpoint, it's pretty imposing. I don't know if it's, I would say equally. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say more or less.
I don't think that's a bad thing considering how many people you had go to the NFL, right?
Sure.
I was gonna say equally as well for the defense because, I mean, if you have Juwan Briggs and Noah Potter leading the way for your defensive line, followed by Jabari and Malik, all right, cool. Those, they're not small dudes. Then you have Will Huber, Jaheim, Van Fossen, and Deshaun and Ivan Pace there for the linebackers. All right, again, pretty big dudes. Then you got JQ and Shep and Arquan, and I mean, Yeah, I mean, even the DBs, they're stacking up, I think, just as much as what you had with last year as far as just physically imposing. What say you, Chad?
I didn't hear a word any of you all said because I thought I was actually gonna like end up on the outside looking in for a second.
we said both were
I,
we said both were equally imposing, both offense and defense.
I'd say a little less, just slightly less, just because like there are going to be people that throw to the boundary side of the field. Sauce was as physically imposing as it gets, and for a cornerback.
I think in the defensive backfield, when you take him and Cook out,
right?
It from that standpoint. Yeah, we're just talking straight like traits, physical, like look.
I mean, Kobe was like 6'2.5", like quality speed. Like he wasn't a small like.
No, I'm not saying he was, but I would say the other two are the ones that truly like make it a big difference from that standpoint.
And Beavers and Dublanco.
Oh yeah,
like
I mean, you got nothing.
Jaheim steps in, Huber steps in. They're bigger dudes, but Beavers and Dublanco were like, you looked at those two dudes on the field and went, "Oh shit!"
For sure.
Like, here's something to consider. Those two were about the size of Connor Barwin. And we always thought Barwin was just an absolute freak, right?
Yeah, wait until people see Potter in pads, though.
I know. I agree. I just think defensively you have to say no. Offensively, Josh and Lenny are back. The line is back. Yeah, you don't have Alec Pierce and Dez, but you still, walking out of the tunnel, look like a hell of an offense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe, 4 months from now, we're having a different response about the defense. But for right now, I'll go with last year's defense. That was walking on the field. That was like, we're gonna whip your ass.
Oh yeah.
And for the most part, every Saturday they did. So yeah.
Faux show.
I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot else on Squat Fest. We've talked about it a bunch. It's always so fun to just get a brief insight, even as much as we have him on, and he's part of the Bearcat Journal family. Like, just seeing him in his element, giving the speeches before and after, like seeing him running around and screaming into the mic and calling out guys.
I did get to hear one good one from Brady for the offense, so that was fun.
Yeah. Which players got on the mic this year? There wasn't a whole lot of players on the mic.
No, it wasn't like last year where Sauce just walked
had
around
it for
with it the whole time.
Like Brady had it for a long time. Lambert had it for a while. I think Sauce might have even had it. Wiley, I thought, would be the best one to do it. I didn't see him with the mic, though, because he had the mask on.
He was too busy in mime character.
Yeah, he was in character with a scary red and black mime mask.
It's fucking weird.
Psycho. I love that dude so much. He's such a lunatic. Which players got on the mic? And more importantly, which QB squatted more, since that is the true indication of who will start. I think they were pretty close.
That's what they should do. Whoever squats more is starting.
Yeah. My guess, I think Luther would have won that battle.
Well, yeah.
What'd you think of seeing your first look at Luther, of that Hercules Luther?
He's verging towards Brady Quinn. Which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I mean, it's good to be Brady. Brady was a
Good.
great college player, got drafted in the first round, but he was one of the more muscled up quarterbacks in recent memory.
It'll be interesting to see when he gets out there at higher ground.
He's gonna put a hurting on some scout teamers though, some threes.
Oh, can you imagine him running like a read option, and one of the walk-ons coming up and trying to put a hit on him?
Yeah, when he's out there in threes and fours at higher ground, him and Quincy Burrows are going to be throwing all over some poor DBs.
Quincy Burrows is a dude, Dave. That's one of those dudes you look at and go, man, I don't know for sure how it's going to play out, but that dude has every look of a kid that eventually is going to take a lot of snaps in the NFL.
Well, he was one that that Brady came over to me and pointed out like he was like a proud dad, like, see that guy, like he's that's what I've been working on.
Well, whatever he's been doing has been effective, because
he definitely don't look like a freshman. That was terrible grammar.
He looks like he's been here for a few minutes.
Yeah, he was working out, lifting with Trey and Tyler, and
keeping up.
He is not afraid of the weight room. That's for sure. He knows exactly where that place is.
Who has bigger biceps, Luther or Ed Hockley? I don't think Luther's quite to Ed Hockley levels yet, but eventually. He's got some guns. With Luther, though, for me, it's more like his back and like his core are just like, it's not what a quarterback looks like.
Yeah. Rockfest is always fun. It's kind of like, to me, I know to them it like signals the end of like the
summer lifting,
winter, spring, summer period. To me, it kind of signals the beginning of the year. Like when Squat Fest hits, I'm like, all right, we're kind of getting close to football season.
Well, yeah, they go home this week. They come back next week. They got OTAs for a couple weeks, and then it's off to higher ground.
Yep.
We are roughly a month from the start of higher ground. So it ain't far. Like, I'll be out for these next couple days, and then back home for a week, and then out for a week, and then it's almost go time. So,
yep.
I don't have a whole lot of basketball. Those guys are all on a week break as well. Hopefully next week I'll get to see them get some run in against the TBT team. As those guys all get to town, they get to town here in about a week. So I'm excited for that. And then I'll be back on the road for Peach Jam. And like I said, like it's direct focus straight ahead. Camp Higher Ground, here we come.
There was a early question about how we feel about the 15th.
Back to back.
And I would say we feel the same that we have felt.
Yes.
But I did want to bring up an interesting topic with you without naming names.
Okay.
Some of our friends seem to not be enjoying this recruiting cycle as much as maybe the Bearcats are. And a new prevailing thought is that different schools and how they have handled NIL is affecting their recruiting. Do you think that is an accurate statement, or do you think that is an easy excuse when things aren't going the way you've hoped, because I have a hard time believing that schools that are trying to compete at the highest level are like making it harder for their programs to recruit, and the NLI is the reason.
So
here's the thing. Notice, like, when things started, I talked a lot about NIL. It's NIL, not NLI. It's not name, likeness, and image. It's name, image, and likeness.
Name, image, and likeness.
You said NLI. I'm just messing. You're confusing it with national letter of intent.
Oh, I thought I said, who cares? Whatever.
I'm just busting your balls. It's fine. Notice I've stopped talking about it, really. Like, I didn't bring it up on Jermaine Matthews. Like, didn't bring it up on Malik Hartford. I mean, obviously, Ohio State's going to have more resources and better access to, like.
No one has a better system in place in the entire country right now.
Right. But I didn't pin it on that. I just pinned it on they did a better job getting it done with two of their primary targets. I think it is becoming an easy excuse. But the place that's doing it, the place that is making the, let me just tell you, if they're not doing NLI, then they're just offering kids bags. Like, they're just old schooling it because they're not going quietly into the night on this. Now, I know they have an AD that has been very adamant about we are not going to use NLI to recruit. And that's kind of where that sentiment is coming.
Right. We're not going to do,
which I'm
and
sure.
I'll just say it because my school's the one doing it. Like, we're not going to do a Tennessee.
Right. Like, that's where Mitch Barnhart's stance has been.
Well, now you just outed the school, Chad.
I don't care, whatever. But that has been like his thing, is we're not, we don't need to use NIL on the recruiting trail to get football program is going, excuse me, sir. yes, we do. Right? Like, this is exactly how we operate. We've been doing this long before name, image, and likeness was a thing. And now it's legal and we're out. Like, I think that's where the pushback comes from. But I'll just say they are not shying away from still trying to monetarily entice potential prospects.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
and I'll leave it at that.
That is a hoot to me, is that now it's an excuse when you're not able to secure a commitment, even though, without ironclad proof, not much has really changed behind the scenes. You're just calling it something different now.
Well, the problem being is now that it's out in the open, their AD is taking a stand against it, right? So he's made it clear to those coaches that, like, this isn't how we operate. Like,
right.
They've had
things that were happening
like,
before were happening in the shadows.
Right. When it was being done behind the scenes, it was like, don't ask,
That's
don't
what I mean.
tell,
Like,
right? Like, we don't want to know.
He didn't know. Plausible deniability.
Right. And now that it's out in the open, he's like, well, that's not how we do things here. And the coaches are like, yes, we do.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of that. Like,
it's just interesting.
I don't know. You saw it.
It's interesting that
You saw it from UCLA's site. Like Isaiah Collier, it's because they're farther along in NIL than UCLA. Give me a break.
yeah, like
Come
the
on.
G5 team is farther along in NL in name, image, and likeness than one of the bluest of blue bloods in the entire sport.
That's located in like the home of NIL opportunities.
You're right, and has
Come on.
The deepest alumni base, the most connected alumni base probably of any school in the country from a purely like ex-player standpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just interesting to observe. And a certain coach seems to always send out quite a what I would call bitchy tweet when they don't get someone that they wanted. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any tweets next Friday. I don't know.
Depending on, I think what's happening now, Dave, is you're seeing a lot of coaching staffs at war with their athletic departments on this space. Because especially at a place like UCLA, like we don't have to, we don't have to pay kids to come here. Right? Like that's who they believe they are.
Yes, we're UCLA. You want to come play for us.
Well, that's fine, but just don't expect to be involved with the 5-star kids.
Right. Because everybody wants them, and they can go wherever they want. And so what? Why are they going to go to you? They can go to another similar program and get some money out of it.
Right. And the coaches are going, hey, like we still want those 5-star kids, man. Like we better start playing the game. And the AD is like, no, that's not the spirit of what name, image, and likeness is about. It's supposed to be about for the kids that are on your campus and competing for your program and et cetera.
Which I'm 100% in line with, but I'm not the one trying to get commits either. If I was a coach, I'd be looking at it a totally different way. I'd be looking at it as, I don't give a shit what your grandiose idea and Pollyanna plan for this system is. This is the reality that if we want to get this good kid, this is what we need to do. Like, I can sit here and say I think it's kind of silly that they're giving money to players that haven't proven that they are worth a penny, let alone $8 million. But I'm not the one whose job is on the line if I don't get those players. So you're either doing what everybody else is doing, or you're cool with not getting those type of dudes, and then you should also be cool with like not firing your coach if he doesn't win enough for you because you wouldn't do what everybody else is doing.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's the behind the scenes thing, right? Is like, if you're not going to let me do my job the way that everybody else is doing the job around the country, then don't hold me to the same standard you're holding them to.
Right. Like, why aren't you going to the Sweet 16? Probably because you're not letting me do the same stuff everybody else that's going to the Sweet 16 is doing.
Yeah. I know I'm breaking up really bad right now, right?
You're much better right now. You were back to typing away at the computer a second ago. And right now it's good.
I haven't heard a word you said.
So Delquan Warren received an offer tonight. Can you tell me anything about him?
Aaron, can you talk to him, like answer him for a minute? Because I literally can't hear anything that's coming across.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know anything about Delquan Warren. That's what I can tell you.
He's the kid that visited last week when Rayvon and Tyler McKinney visited. He played tonight. What?
I was just gonna say we talked a little bit about him on the BBP yesterday afternoon, but oh god,
He played against Ravon today. So if he got an offer today, that means I'm guessing he played really well against Ravon this evening.
Where's he from?
He's from Ohio. He plays with a team in West Virginia. Well, maybe.
It says he's at Keystone Academy in Erie, Pennsylvania.
He's from Erie, Pennsylvania. Sorry, I thought he was from Ohio.
This is going swimmingly.
Yep.
Your favorite boutique hotel needs to up their internet speeds.
Agreed.
It's not going great right now. Somebody is downloading something major in this hotel. I finally have both of you back a little bit.
I mean, are you sure, or are you just dealing with some AOL dial-up because your boutique hotel is giving away rooms for $90 a night, and they don't have enough cash on hand to have real fucking internet.
That's a fair assessment of the situation. Jason, yeah, basically, yeah. They'll pay players illegally. Well, the staff will pay players illegally because the AD doesn't know about it. But paying them legally, the AD has said no. So that's the dilemma that they're in.
Well, that's because they're too busy trying to pay the football players legally to steal them away from everybody else.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing is they're dropping bags behind the scenes because the AD doesn't know about that. But, when it's above board, we're not interested in that racket.
So crazy.
Yeah.
But it also seems like a very, very convenient excuse.
Well, but it's very real though. Like their AD is very much on the record, and what they're doing is they're using the basketball iteration of it, and we don't have to do that. We're Kentucky, but that only works in basketball for Kentucky, right? Like they can say, look, we can't promise you anything in recruiting, but we're going to get you $250,000 in NIL the minute that you're on campus.
Well, and you're probably going to get drafted.
Right.
So,
but that's not their football MO.
No.
And now they're falling behind in football recruiting, and they got to have something to blame it on.
I just got a 4-star commit from corner from Alabama today, so maybe that'll make them all happy now.
Well, they must have approved NIL for him then.
Yeah.
All right, my internet sucks, so I guess that's about the end of this road.
Works for me.
All right, we'll be back next week. I will probably next week will be fine. The week after, I'll be somewhere in Augusta, Georgia.
Well, I'm sure they got great internet down there.
Yeah. A lot of hotel rooms.
Are you close to Are you close to the Masters?
Usually I'm on the same street. Like I'm on the same road. I drive past the entrance is all blacked out. Like there's fence, but the fence is you can't see inside.
Yeah, for sure.
So I can see where it is, but I've never actually seen.
They're doing major course restoration renovation right now. It's pretty ridiculous what they do every year to that place.
I mean, how much does it change? It looks pretty much the same on TV.
No. Well, it looks the same on TV. It's changed drastically over the last several years.
Okay.
It's they close it down all summer. You can't play.
That seems counterproductive.
They don't care.
We have a golf course, but nobody can play it for 4 or 5 months.
That's when they do all the work. They're stretching out one of the par fives, brand new tee box, totally different routing for the whole. they did a bunch of work to one of the par fours this past year, like totally changed like how you play the hole. You don't really see it from TV unless it's an aerial, but there's this really cool, I don't even know what it is. The golf nerds know about it, but there's this like really cool Twitter account that grabs these like aerial pictures of Augusta, and you can see like all the different stuff they're doing.
Fascinating.
In like real time.
So what you're saying is I should take a drone and
that
fly
thing,
it over
that
Augusta
thing would get shot down so fast.
Would they shoot it out of the air?
Oh, I would venture to guess they have some sort of fancy system that lets them know if things are in their airspace, a certain amount of feet above the ground.
All right. Well, I won't take a drone then.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be beneficial.
All right. We'll see you next week. He's Dave Simone. I'm Chad Brendel. Thanks again. Producer extraordinaire Aaron Smith. This is the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com.